Hello, listeners. Welcome to the English Globe, the place where learning English becomes a journey of ideas, knowledge, and understanding. Today we invite you to open your minds and listen carefully, because we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and thought-provoking questions in modern global history. Can Russia replace America as the world's leading superpower? This question is not just about countries or leaders. It's about how the world changes, how nations rise and fall, and how power shapes the lives of billions of people around the world.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome, dear listeners, wherever you are joining us from. Whether you are studying English in a classroom, relaxing at home, or listening during your travels. Today's topic is special because it helps us understand not only world politics, but also the power of words, culture, and influence. When we talk about superpowers, we are not only speaking about armies and weapons, we are also talking about ideas, technology, culture, and values that touch every part of our planet.
Before we begin, we kindly ask our dear listeners to take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the English Globe so you never miss our future episodes. Your support helps us create more educational podcasts that make English learning both interesting and meaningful. Also, please share your thoughts in the comments section. Tell us where you are listening from and what you think about today's topic. Do you believe Russia could ever replace America as the world's leading superpower? We would love to read your opinions and ideas.
That's right, Adam. Your comments are a big part of our global classroom, and every time you share your view, you help other English learners around the world think, discuss, and grow. So, let's start by understanding what the word superpower really means. In simple terms, a superpower is a country that has the ability to influence or control events around the world through its economy, military, culture, and technology. Such a country doesn't just protect itself, it shapes the world around it.
The idea of a superpower became especially important after World War II, when two great nations, the United States and the Soviet Union, became the centers of global power. The United States represented democracy, capitalism, and freedom of speech, while the Soviet Union stood for communism, central control, and equality in ideology. For nearly half a century, these two nations competed in what we call the Cold War, a period of tension, competition, and influence without direct fighting.
During that time, the world was divided into two spheres, one led by America and another led by the Soviet Union. Both sides tried to show that their system of government, economy, and culture was stronger and more successful. The race for space, science, and nuclear technology was not only about progress, but also about proving power. However, when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, many believed that the story of great competition had ended and that America would stay as the only superpower forever.
But history has a strange way of repeating itself. Over the past 2 decades, Russia has slowly tried to return to the world stage, rebuilding its economy, strengthening its military, and forming new global partnerships. Some observers believe Russia is once again becoming a major player in the global arena, while others say its power is limited compared to the United States. This is what makes today's discussion so interesting. Can Russia truly replace America as the world's leading superpower, or is the global balance of power changing in a completely new way?
For English learners, this topic is not just about history or politics. It's a great opportunity to learn new vocabulary related to international relations, global economy, and world leadership. Words like influence, dominance, alliance, and diplomacy are used often in discussions about power and politics. By listening to this podcast, you are not only improving your English skills, but also learning how to express complex global ideas in simple, clear language.
Exactly, Julia. When we think about superpowers, we must remember that power can be seen in many forms. Military power is only one side of the picture. Economic strength, scientific innovation, and cultural influence can often be more powerful than armies. For example, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and the American education system are soft power tools that make the United States respected and admired by people all around the world.
That's a very important point. Russia, too, has its own form of influence. Its culture, history, literature, and energy resources play a significant role in shaping the modern world. But being a superpower requires more than natural resources or a strong military. It demands a long-lasting influence on global systems, how people think, work, and communicate. So the real question is, does Russia have the capacity, the vision, and the resources to match or even surpass the United States?
This is exactly what we will explore in this podcast. We'll go step by step through history, economy, military power, alliances, technology, and global influence to understand where Russia stands today compared to America. We'll look at both facts and perspectives, not to take sides, but to learn how power shifts and how nations use strategy to maintain their position in the world.
Our goal here is education, to help every listener understand how international power works and how it connects to your daily life, even if you are far from these countries. The price of oil, the technology you use, the news you read, all of it is influenced by these global powers. Learning about them helps you become a more informed citizen of the world and, of course, a better English speaker.
So, dear listeners, sit back, relax, and listen carefully. This episode is not about who is right or wrong. It's about learning how nations grow, compete, and influence each other. We will use simple English, but we will explore deep ideas. By the end, you will not only understand more about the world, but also gain new words and expressions to describe it.
Let's begin this journey together as we open the first chapter of our discussion. Understanding the word superpower. What does it truly mean to be the world's leading nation? How do power, culture, and leadership connect to form a superpower? These are the questions that will guide us as we move forward in today's episode of the English Globe.
To understand whether Russia can replace America as the world's leading superpower, we first need to look back and understand how the United States became so powerful in the first place. The rise of America as a superpower was not sudden. It was the result of history, innovation, leadership, and the belief that progress is possible when people work together. After World War II, the world changed completely, and America stepped into a position that no other country could easily challenge.
Yes, Adam, when the Second World War ended in 1945, most of Europe and Asia were destroyed. Cities were in ruins, industries were damaged, and millions of people were homeless. But the United States was different. Its land had not been touched by war, its factories were active, its economy was strong, and its people were motivated. During the war, America had built weapons, airplanes, and technology not only for itself, but also for its allies. This production power gave it an enormous advantage after the war ended.
You are absolutely right, Julia. While other countries were trying to rebuild, America already had everything ready. Powerful industries, skilled workers, and new scientific inventions. The U.S. also had the world's largest gold reserves and a stable currency, the dollar, which later became the main international currency. The Marshall Plan, which helped rebuild Europe, showed that America was not just powerful, but also generous. It used its economic strength to help others, and that made other countries trust and respect it.
Exactly, Adam. That combination of power and generosity became the foundation of America's leadership. But another important factor was education and innovation. After the war, the US became home to some of the world's greatest universities, scientists, and inventors. Many brilliant minds from Europe, including scientists who escaped from war zones, moved to America and started new projects there. This helped the US become the center of research space exploration and technology.
Let's also not forget that America's influence was not only military or scientific, it was cultural. Hollywood, music, television, and lifestyle spread American ideas to every corner of the world. Through movies and media, people began to see America as the symbol of freedom, modern life, and opportunity. This cultural influence is what experts call soft power, the ability to attract and inspire others without using force. In many ways, this soft power was as strong as America's army.
That's true, Adam. And we must remember that America's political system was also a big reason for its rise. The idea of democracy, that people can choose their leaders and speak freely, made America different from many other powerful nations. It created a system where people felt their voices mattered. This sense of freedom inspired not only Americans, but also people in many other countries who wanted similar rights. It gave America a kind of moral leadership that went beyond borders.
During the Cold War, which began shortly after World War II, America's position as a superpower became even clearer. The US and the Soviet Union were two giants standing on opposite sides of the world, each trying to show that their system was better. America built alliances like NATO and worked closely with Western Europe and Japan to create a strong economic and political network. The US was not only defending itself, it was shaping a new world order based on free trade, democracy, and cooperation.
Yes, and this system gave America long-lasting power. The dollar became the global currency. American companies expanded to every continent, and English became the international language of business and science. For English learners listening today, it's interesting to know that the reason English is spoken almost everywhere is partly because of America's global influence. Movies, music, technology, and the internet. All these industries were led by Americans, and that spread the language to billions of people.
Another reason for America's rise was its geography. The U.S. is a large country with vast natural resources: oil, gas, coal, farmland, and water. It is also protected by two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, which kept it safe from many wars. These natural advantages gave it both security and wealth. Countries with such strong foundations can build powerful economies that support strong armies and innovative industries. Geography, in many ways, became one of America's secret strengths.
That's a very good point, Adam. The rise of America was not only about what it had, but also about what it believed. The American dream, the idea that anyone can succeed through hard work, gave people hope. Immigrants from around the world came to America searching for a better life, and their energy, creativity, and ideas made the country even stronger. It became a nation built on diversity, innovation, and determination. That combination created something truly powerful.
And this spirit also connected with global leadership. The U.S. didn't just want to be rich or powerful, it wanted to shape the future. From leading the creation of the United Nations to supporting space exploration, America saw itself as a guide for human progress. When the U.S. landed the first humans on the moon in 1969, it was not only a technological success, it was a global message of ambition, creativity, and unity. Many people around the world saw America as the symbol of what humanity could achieve.
Yes, that moment changed history. It showed that technology and imagination could make anything possible. And America continued to lead in computers, medicine, and later the Internet revolution. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Google started in the US and changed how the entire world works, learns, and communicates. So, when we ask whether Russia can replace America as the world's leading superpower, we must remember how deep and wide America's influence is. Not just military power, but cultural, technological, and linguistic influence as well.
Exactly, Julia. A true superpower doesn't just lead through strength, it leads through example. The United States has built a system that influences how people think, how they work, and even how they dream. But as we'll see later, this position is not permanent. Every power faces challenges. History teaches us that no empire lasts forever. What makes today's world so interesting is that many countries, including Russia and China, are trying to change the balance of power again.
And that's what makes our discussion so valuable for our listeners. Understanding how America became powerful helps us see what it takes to become a global leader, not only resources and armies, but also education, values, and trust. As we continue, we'll explore how Russia once stood shoulder to shoulder with America during the Cold War, and how it's now trying to return to that position. The story of superpowers is not only about countries, it's about the evolution of human ambition and global cooperation.
Beautifully said, Julia. So, dear listeners, as you continue listening, think about what truly makes a nation powerful. Is it wealth? Is it military force? Or is it the ability to inspire others and shape the world peacefully through ideas and innovation? These questions will guide us through the next part of our journey as we explore the rise, fall, and future of global powers.
In our next discussion, we will turn our attention to Russia, its long and complex history, from empire to the Soviet Union. We will see how a nation that once stood as a rival to the United States shaped half of the 20th century, and how its legacy continues to influence global politics today. Stay with us as we move into that story here on the English Globe.
To truly understand whether Russia can ever replace America as the world's leading superpower, we must go back in time and see how Russia became powerful in the first place. Russia's story is one of strength, struggle, and transformation. It stretches across more than 1,000 years, beginning as a collection of small kingdoms before becoming one of the largest and most influential empires in history. The roots of Russian power are deep, and they reveal how ambition and endurance shaped a nation that always dreamed of greatness.
That's right, Adam. When we talk about the Russian Empire, we are talking about a country that covered huge lands across Europe and Asia. Russia grew from the small city of Moscow into a giant that stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Pacific Ocean. It became a nation of many peoples, cultures, and religions, united under strong leadership. By the 18th and 19th centuries, under rulers like Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, Russia began to modernize its army, build new cities, and expand its influence into Europe and Asia.
Peter the Great, in particular, played a very important role. He wanted Russia to become as advanced and modern as Western Europe. He built a new capital, St. Petersburg, which became the window to Europe. This city symbolized a new Russia, a country looking outward, ready to learn and compete with other powerful nations. Peter introduced new technologies, reorganized the military, and created a strong navy. He believed that for Russia to be powerful, it needed both knowledge and discipline.
Catherine the Great continued this vision. She ruled with intelligence and ambition, bringing European thinkers and artists to Russia. Under her rule, Russia became one of the most respected empires in Europe. Its art, culture, and philosophy began to influence the world. However, behind this success, there were also deep social problems. The majority of Russians were poor farmers, called serfs, who had few rights. The gap between the rich and the poor was huge, and this inequality would later become one of the main reasons for revolution.
As time passed, Russia continued to expand its land, becoming the largest country on Earth. But size alone does not guarantee stability. By the early 20th century, the empire faced serious challenges: political corruption, slow modernization, and rising public anger. The First World War made things even worse. Millions of Russian soldiers died, food became scarce, and people lost trust in the Tsar, the Emperor of Russia. In 1917, all this frustration exploded into one of the most important events in modern history: the Russian Revolution.
Yes, the revolution completely changed the direction of the country. The old empire collapsed, and a new political system was born, under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin and his Bolshevik Party. They introduced communism, an idea that aimed to create equality by ending private ownership and sharing wealth among all citizens. It was a radical change, and for many people it was both hopeful and frightening. The world watched as Russia transformed from a monarchy into a new kind of state, the Soviet Union.
The birth of the Soviet Union in 1922 marked the beginning of a new chapter in global history. The Soviet Union was more than just a country. It was a system, a vision, and a challenge to the Western world. It believed that the working class should control the economy and that resources should belong to the people, not private individuals. This idea quickly spread to other nations, inspiring revolutions and creating fear in capitalist countries that believed in free markets and private property.
Under Lenin, and later under Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union became a superpower built on industry, discipline, and central planning. Factories, railways, and cities were built rapidly. The government controlled production and encouraged scientific progress. Despite the hardships and strict control, the Soviet Union achieved enormous progress in just a few decades. It became one of the first nations to industrialize so quickly, and its influence spread across Asia and Eastern Europe.
However, that progress came at a very high human cost. Under Stalin's leadership, millions of people were sent to labor camps, and many lost their lives during political purges. The government was powerful, but feared. Still, it is important for our listeners to remember that this history, while painful, also shows how determined the Russian people were to build strength from nothing. Their ability to survive, adapt, and rebuild is one of the reasons Russia continues to be seen as a resilient nation even today.
That's very true, Adam. The Second World War was another moment that showed the strength of the Soviet Union. When Nazi Germany invaded in 1941, the Soviet people faced unimaginable suffering, but they did not surrender. The Battle of Stalingrad became one of the turning points of the war. Millions of soldiers and civilians fought and died, but in the end, the Soviet Union defeated one of the most powerful armies in history. This victory gave Russia not only pride, but also global recognition as a heroic and powerful nation.
After the war, the Soviet Union emerged as one of the two global superpowers, standing side by side with the United States. It had a huge army, advanced science, and growing influence. The Soviet Union built alliances with countries in Eastern Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa. It offered an alternative to the Western model of capitalism by promoting socialism. This created a world divided between two systems, one led by America and another led by the Soviet Union. This period became known as the Cold War.
The Cold War was not a traditional war with bombs and battles. It was a war of ideas, influence, and competition. The two superpowers raced to develop better weapons, faster rockets, and more advanced technology. The space race became a symbol of this rivalry. When the Soviet Union launched the first satellite, Sputnik, in 1957, it shocked the world. It was proof that Russia was capable of leading in science and technology. A few years later, they sent the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space, making history once again.
Yes, those achievements showed that power could also come from knowledge and innovation. The Soviet education system focused heavily on mathematics, science, and engineering, producing some of the best minds in the world. Even though life was difficult for many, the sense of pride in national success was strong. The Soviet Union became a symbol of strength, unity, and determination for millions of people who believed in the idea of progress through collective effort.
However, the Cold War also placed enormous pressure on the Soviet economy. Keeping up with America in military and space technology required huge resources. At the same time, the government controlled almost everything, which made it difficult for creativity and private business to grow. Over time, this imbalance began to weaken the system. By the late 1980s, the the Soviet Union faced serious problems: economic slowdown, political unrest, and a desire for more freedom among its citizens.
And that is how a great power that once stood equal to the United States began to decline. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved, and 15 independent republics were born, including modern Russia. For many people, it was the end of an era, the end of a world where two superpowers balanced each other. America became the only dominant power, while Russia started a difficult journey of rebuilding its identity, economy, and place in the world.
Yes, Adam, and that journey, from imperial grandeur to revolutionary transformation, and finally to collapse and rebirth, makes Russia one of the most fascinating nations in history. Its story shows that power is never simple. It changes with time, leadership, and the choices of the people. The Russian people have lived through empires, revolutions, and wars, yet they have always found a way to survive and rebuild. That is what gives Russia its unique strength: the power of endurance and resilience.
So when we ask, can Russia replace America as the world's leading superpower? We must remember this long history. Russia has always been a country of contradictions: immense strength mixed with deep challenges, great talent mixed with painful sacrifices. Its past explains its present and gives us clues about its future. In the next section, we will explore what happened after the fall of the Soviet Union and how Russia tried to rise again from the ruins of a collapsed superpower.
Yes, dear listeners, the next part of our story will show how a nation that once ruled half the world tried to rebuild itself in the face of chaos and change. We will see how leadership, resources, and ambition shape the new Russia of the 21st century. Stay tuned as we continue this educational journey right here on the English Globe.
The 1990s were a time of dramatic change for Russia and the world. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, it marked the end of one of history's most powerful empires. For over 70 years, the Soviet Union had been a global superpower, competing directly with the United States for political, military, and cultural influence. Its fall shocked the world and completely changed the global balance of power. Overnight, the map of the world looked different, and 15 new independent nations appeared.
The word collapse means something falling apart suddenly and completely, and that is exactly what happened to the Soviet Union. It didn't just lose power, it lost its identity. Many people in Russia were confused and frightened. The economy that had once been planned and controlled by the government now had to transform into a free market system. This process is called transition, and it was extremely difficult. Prices rose sharply, millions lost their jobs, and basic goods became expensive and hard to find.
This transition was known as shock therapy, a fast and radical way to move from a communist economy to capitalism. Western countries, especially the United States, supported Russia with advice and some financial aid, but the results were painful. Many people became poor, while a small group of businessmen, often called oligarchs, became very rich by buying state-owned companies cheaply. The gap between rich and poor grew wider, and ordinary people felt disappointed and left behind by the promises of reform.
For English learners, it's important to understand the word reform. It means to make changes in order to improve something. Russia tried to reform its economy, its government, and its social systems, but it wasn't easy. These reforms created both hope and chaos. Factories closed, workers protested, and many families struggled to survive. The 1990s in Russia were full of uncertainty. People didn't know what the future would look like or if their country would ever regain its strength.
While Russia was struggling at home, America was rising abroad. After 1991, the United States became the world's only superpower. This was the beginning of what many call the unipolar world, meaning there was only one dominant global power. American culture, business, and technology began to influence nearly every country. From Hollywood movies to global trade, the U.S. set the direction for the world. This period made America the leader of the international order, something that continues to this day.
The fall of the Soviet Union also affected global politics in deep ways. Many countries that were once under Soviet influence turned toward democracy and capitalism. Eastern European nations joined the European Union and NATO, becoming closer to the West. Meanwhile, Russia felt isolated, weaker, and humiliated. Many Russians looked back at the Soviet period with nostalgia, remembering it as a time of strength and global respect, even if it was difficult in other ways.
Another key concept here is global influence. It refers to a country's ability to shape the world, its politics, economy, and culture. In the 1990s, Russia's global influence declined rapidly, while the United States increased its influence everywhere. The U.S. played a leading role in world organizations, international conflicts, and global trade. Russia, on the other hand, was busy dealing with internal problems, corruption, unemployment, and economic collapse.
The 1990s also created a psychological change in Russia's national identity. For decades, people were told they lived in a great and powerful nation. After the collapse, that belief disappeared, replaced by confusion and disappointment. Many Russians wanted stability and pride again. This feeling of loss and the desire to return to greatness would later become a very powerful political idea, shaping the country's future leadership and its foreign policy.
So, in simple words, the collapse of the Soviet Union changed everything, for Russia, for America, and for the world. It ended the Cold War, began a new global order, and started Russia's long journey of rebuilding its economy and influence. Understanding this period helps English learners see why today's world looks the way it does. It also shows how quickly power can shift, and how history can move from one chapter to another almost overnight.
And that's why studying this time is so important. The 1990s were more than a transition, they were a turning point. Russia lost its empire but started building a new identity. America became stronger but also faced new global responsibilities. In the next part of our discussion, we'll explore how Russia tried to recover from this collapse, how it searched for stability, leadership, and a new role on the global stage. Understanding that story helps us see whether Russia could one day replace America as the world's leading superpower.
After the difficult years of the 1990s, Russia was ready for change. The economy was weak, people had lost faith in the government, and many felt that their country no longer had pride or power. Then, at the end of 1999, a new leader appeared, Vladimir Putin. He was a former intelligence officer from the KGB, known for his discipline and strong personality. When he became acting president, many people didn't know much about him. But what they wanted most was stability, and Putin promised exactly that: order, strength, and a new direction for Russia.
For English learners, the word stability is very important here. It means a situation that is steady and not likely to change suddenly. Under Putin, Russia started to become more stable, especially in the economy. In the early 2000s, the global price of oil rose sharply, and since Russia has huge reserves of oil and gas, this brought a lot of money into the country. The government used this money to pay debts, rebuild industries, and increase people's salaries. For the first time in many years, Russian families began to feel some hope for the future again.
That's right, Julia. Oil and gas became the foundation of Russia's comeback. These resources are sometimes called energy wealth because they provide huge profits when exported to other countries. Europe depended heavily on Russian gas, and that gave Russia strong economic and political leverage. Leverage means power or influence that you can use to achieve something. By controlling much of Europe's energy supply, Russia gained a stronger position on the global stage. Putin's government focused on using these resources not only to rebuild the economy, but also to restore national pride.
National pride, or nationalism, became one of the key parts of Putin's leadership. Nationalism means a strong feeling of loyalty and love for one's country, often connected to the belief that the nation should be powerful and respected. Putin talked often about making Russia strong again, not just economically, but also militarily and culturally. He rebuilt the country's armed forces, modernized weapons, and invested in military technology. The army once again became a symbol of national identity and pride for many Russians, reminding them of the power the Soviet Union once had.
Another thing that made Putin's early years different was his ability to bring order to a chaotic political system. During the 1990s, power in Russia was divided among many wealthy businessmen, the so-called oligarchs. They controlled television stations, banks, and large companies. But under Putin, that changed. He took control of the media and limited the power of these businessmen. Many of them lost their influence, and those who opposed the government were often forced to leave the country. Putin wanted a strong, centralized government where decisions were made in Moscow and followed by everyone.
This process of taking back control is sometimes described as recentralization. It means bringing power back to the center, in this case, the president and his government. Putin's leadership style was direct, firm, and often described as authoritarian. For English learners, that word means a system where one leader or group has strong control and expects people to follow rules without much opposition. While many Russians criticized this lack of political freedom, others supported it because it brought peace and stability after years of disorder.
During the 2000s, ordinary life in Russia started to improve. Cities became cleaner, wages increased, and shops were filled with goods again. The middle class grew, and people could afford cars, travel, and better housing. Moscow and St. Petersburg began to look more modern, filled with new businesses, restaurants, and technology. For many people, this was proof that Putin's leadership was working. He had given Russia back its dignity, something that had been lost after the Soviet collapse. The idea of a strong Russia became central to the national conversation.
But along with these improvements came tighter political control. Independent media faced pressure, opposition leaders found it difficult to organize, and elections were often criticized by international observers. Still, Putin remained popular among many Russians, especially because he was seen as the man who brought back order. The country's image in the world began to change too. Russia was no longer the weak and struggling state of the 1990s. It was now seen as confident, rich in energy resources, and ready to play an important role again on the global stage.
Economically, Russia benefited greatly from high oil prices between 2000 and 2008. The government saved money in a special stabilization fund, which helped protect the economy during hard times. Foreign investment increased, and Russia joined several international organizations. However, experts warned that the economy depended too much on oil and gas, a situation called resource dependence. This meant that if global prices dropped, Russia could face new economic problems. Still, during those years, it looked like the country had entered a period of strong recovery.
Putin's strategy was not just about money, it was also about respect. He wanted Russia to be seen again as an equal to the United States and Europe. He spoke often about protecting Russia's interests and opposing what he saw as Western interference. For him, national sovereignty, the right of a country to make its own decisions, was non-negotiable. This message appealed to many Russians who felt that the West had treated their country unfairly after the Soviet collapse. It reignited a sense of pride and unity among the people.
By the mid-2000s, Russia was once again a country that demanded global attention. Its economy was strong, its army was growing, and its leadership was stable. Putin had transformed the image of Russia from a broken nation into a confident power with ambition. The early 2000s became known as the era of the Russian comeback. It was a time when many believed that Russia could finally reclaim its place as one of the world's great powers.
So, when we look at Putin's early years, we see a combination of economic success, political control, and national pride. He used Russia's natural resources to rebuild the economy, restored order after years of chaos, and brought back a sense of confidence to the people. Yet, this comeback also came with limits, less political freedom, and growing tension with the West. In the next stage of our exploration, we'll see how this renewed strength shaped Russia's relationship with the rest of the world, and whether it truly set the stage for Russia to challenge America's global leadership.
Now that we've looked at Russia's comeback, let's compare it to the United States, the country that has been considered the world's leading superpower for decades. When we talk about superpower, we mean a country that has global influence in many areas: its economy, military, technology, culture, and political reach. Both the US and Russia are powerful nations, but their strengths are very different. To understand whether Russia can replace America as the world's leading superpower, we need to look carefully at how the two countries compare today. In economy, military, global trade, education, and technology.
Let's start with the economy, because economic power is one of the most important signs of global strength. The United States has the largest economy in the world. Its gross domestic product, or GDP, is around $27 trillion, which means it produces goods and services worth that much every year. Russia's GDP, in comparison, is around $2 trillion. That's more than 10 times smaller. This difference shows how much larger and more productive the US economy is. America's economy is built on many industries: technology, finance, manufacturing, healthcare, and entertainment. Russia's economy, on the other hand, depends heavily on oil, gas, and natural resources.
That's an excellent point, Julia. For English learners, it's good to remember the word diversified. The US economy is diversified, meaning it has many different sources of income. Russia's economy is less diversified because it relies mainly on energy exports. When oil and gas prices go up, Russia earns more money. But when they go down, the economy suffers. This makes Russia's financial system less stable. America also has global financial institutions, big companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Google, which help shape the entire world economy. These companies don't just make products, they set global trends in technology and innovation.
Speaking of innovation, let's talk about technology and science. The United States leads the world in technological research, space exploration, and digital industries. Silicon Valley in California is home to many of the world's biggest tech firms. The US invests billions of dollars every year in research and development. It also attracts scientists and engineers from all over the world. Russia has strong scientific traditions. It built the first satellite, Sputnik, and has a proud space history. But its modern technology sector is much smaller. In recent years, Western sanctions and limited investment have slowed its technological progress.
Another area where the two countries differ greatly is global trade. The United States is the largest trading nation in the world. It exports goods like airplanes, technology, machinery, and agricultural products to almost every continent. The US dollar is also the main currency used in global trade, which gives America enormous influence over the world's financial system. Russia trades mainly energy resources, oil, gas, and minerals, with countries like China, India, and those in Europe. However, international sanctions have reduced some of these connections, making it harder for Russia to trade freely in global markets.
Military power is another key part of being a superpower. Both America and Russia have large and advanced militaries, but they are very different in size and global presence. The US military has around 800 bases around the world. in countries across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. It also has a defense budget of over $850 billion a year, more than any other nation. Russia's defense budget is around $110 billion. While Russia's military is powerful and well-trained, it does not have the same global reach as the United States. America's Navy, Air Force, and technology systems allow it to project power far beyond its borders.
However, it's important to say that Russia still has one major area where it rivals the US at nuclear weapons. Both countries possess around 5,000 to 6,000 nuclear warheads, making them the two biggest nuclear powers in the world. This balance of power, known as mutually assured destruction, is one reason why neither side would ever want a direct conflict. But beyond nuclear weapons, America's conventional military, meaning tanks, planes, ships, and technology, is more advanced, larger, and better funded. The U.S. also spends more on military research and cyber defense than any other nation.
Now let's talk about education, because it plays a big role in shaping a country's future power. The U.S. has many of the world's top universities, such as Harvard, MIT, and Stanford. These institutions attract students from every continent, including many from Russia. Education in America emphasizes creativity, research, and innovation, which helps keep the U.S. at the center of global science and technology. Russia also has respected universities and strong traditions in mathematics, physics, and engineering, but it has fewer global research opportunities and faces challenges in keeping young talent from moving abroad.
That's a key difference, the concept of brain drain. This term means when educated and talented people leave their country to work somewhere else with better opportunities. Russia has struggled with brain drain for many years, while the United States benefits from it. Many of the world's brightest minds go to America to study, work, and innovate. This gives the U.S. a long-term advantage in both economic and technological growth. The ability to attract talent is one of the biggest reasons the U.S. remains so influential globally.
Cultural power is another factor that can't be ignored. American culture, movies, music, brands, and even the English language itself reaches almost every country in the world. Hollywood films, pop music, fast food chains, and social media platforms like YouTube and Instagram are all part of US soft power. Soft power means influence through culture and ideas, not weapons. Russia's culture is rich and deep, with great literature, ballet, and art, but it doesn't have the same global reach as American media and entertainment today. Soft power helps the US maintain its image and influence far beyond its borders.
When we compare America and Russia in terms of global alliances, the difference becomes even clearer. The United States leads major organizations like NATO and has strong partnerships with the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and many others. Russia has alliances too, mainly with countries like China, Iran, and Belarus, but they are smaller and more regional. The U.S. uses diplomacy, trade, and defense agreements to maintain its leadership in international affairs, while Russia focuses more on its nearby regions, especially Eastern Europe and Central Asia.
So, when we put all these comparisons together, economy, technology, education, culture, and global influence, we can see that the United States still holds the position of the world's leading superpower. Russia is strong in some areas, especially in energy and military strength, but it doesn't yet match America's global reach. For English learners, this section shows how different kinds of power work together: economic power, military power, and soft power to shape the world order. Understanding these ideas helps us think critically about what it really means to be a superpower in today's world.
That's right, Julia. The competition between the U.S. and Russia is not only about weapons or money, it's also about influence, values, and the ability to shape the global future. While Russia has made impressive progress since the 1990s, The United States still has broader strength across all major areas. But history teaches us that global power is never fixed. It changes with time, innovation, and leadership. In the next part of our podcast, we'll explore how both nations use their power and how that competition affects the rest of the world. When we talk about superpowers, we can't just look at their armies or economies. Real global influence also comes from alliances, the partnerships and friendships a country builds around the world. No nation, not even a superpower, can survive or grow stronger completely alone. Alliances help countries share technology, security, and economic benefits. For the United States, alliances have always been one of its greatest strengths. One of the most important is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO was created in 1949 after World War II to protect Western countries from military threats. It began with 12 members, but today it has more than 30, including nations from Europe and North America.
Yes, NATO is a very powerful organization. Its main idea is simple. If one member is attacked, all members will defend it. This principle is called collective defense. It means countries act as one team. For example, if a small country in Europe faces a threat, the United States and other NATO members are obligated to help. This system gives the US strong influence over Europe's security. American troops, weapons, and technology are present in many NATO countries, especially near Russia's borders. That's one reason why NATO is often a sensitive topic in Russia. Many Russians feel that NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe threatens their national security and influence.
The United States doesn't only work with NATO, it also has deep partnerships with other groups and nations. The European Union, or EU, is one of America's closest economic partners. Together, the US and EU account for nearly half of global trade and investment. America also has strong alliances in Asia, with Japan, South Korea, and Australia, that help balance the growing influence of China. In addition, the US cooperates with Canada and Mexico through trade agreements like the USMCA. These partnerships make the American economy more connected to the world. They also help the US shape international policies on climate, human rights, and technology standards.
Russia, on the other hand, has built its own network of alliances, but they look very different from America's. One of the most significant groups is BRICS, which includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This group represents some of the world's largest developing economies. The main goal of BRICS is to promote cooperation between non-Western countries, giving them a stronger voice in global politics and economics. These countries want to create a fairer world system, one that isn't completely dominated by Western powers like the US and Europe. Russia plays an active role in BRICS, presenting itself as a leader among emerging economies.
That's an interesting point, Julia. For English learners, the word emerging means developing or growing quickly. The BRICS countries are not as rich as Western nations, but they are growing fast and have huge populations. Together, they make up more than 40% of the world's population and about 1/4 of global GDP. Russia uses its role in BRICS to show that it has strong friends outside the West. This is important, especially when the country faces sanctions or isolation from Europe and America. By working with nations like China and India, Russia hopes to build an alternative network of power and trade.
Another important Russian partnership is with China, which has become one of its closest allies in recent years. The two countries share long borders and often support each other in global politics. They both oppose what they call Western domination in world affairs. China is Russia's largest trading partner, and the two nations cooperate in energy, military, and infrastructure projects. For example, Russia exports large amounts of natural gas to China through pipelines like Power of Siberia. This partnership helps Russia sell its resources even when European markets are restricted. It also strengthens both nations' ability to challenge US influence in Asia and beyond.
While the US focuses on defending democracy and free markets, Russia and China emphasize sovereignty, the idea that every country should make its own decisions without outside interference. This is a key philosophical difference between the two power systems. America believes that strong alliances like NATO and the EU promote peace and stability. Russia and China argue that these Western alliances are used to control or pressure other countries. So the world today is divided into two kinds of alliance systems, one built on democratic cooperation and another built on mutual resistance to Western influence.
Besides BRICS and China, Russia is also part of several regional alliances. One of them is the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, which includes countries like Belarus, Armenia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. It is sometimes seen as Russia's version of NATO, designed to protect former Soviet states and maintain influence in Central Asia. Another is the Eurasian Economic Union, EEAU, which promotes trade and economic integration among member countries. Through these groups, Russia tries to strengthen its leadership in the post-Soviet region and create a sense of unity among its neighbors.
For English learners, it's helpful to understand two key words here: influence and independence. Influence means the ability to affect others, while independence means the ability to act freely. Alliances can increase influence but reduce independence. For example, NATO members benefit from US military support, but they also have to follow certain policies and commitments. Similarly, Russia's partners in BRICS or CSTO depend on its energy and protection, but they also risk becoming less independent. So, alliances are always a balance. They bring strength, but sometimes limit freedom.
That's a very important idea, Adam. When we look at how alliances shape global power, we can see that the United States uses them to extend its reach across continents. Its network of allies gives it access to military bases, markets, and diplomatic influence almost everywhere. Russia's alliances, while fewer, are focused on deep partnerships that support its political goals and challenge Western dominance. Both approaches have advantages and disadvantages. The US has size and diversity on its side, while Russia's smaller alliances often share similar political visions and strategic goals.
It's also worth noting how global organizations respond to these alliances. The United Nations, for example, includes both the US and Russia as permanent members of the Security Council. This means both countries have a veto power, giving them equal authority in key global decisions. However, because they often disagree on world issues, the UN sometimes struggles to take united action. This shows that even the biggest alliances cannot completely remove global competition. Instead, they shape how countries cooperate or compete within international institutions.
For English learners, understanding these alliances helps explain why global events are so complex. Every decision, whether it's about energy, security, or trade, involves networks of relationships. The US and Russia use alliances not only to protect themselves, but also to project their values and influence worldwide. America's alliances focus on democracy, technology, and open trade. Russia's focus on sovereignty, security, and resistance to Western power. Both are trying to shape what the future of the global order will look like.
So, when we ask whether alliances make a country more powerful or more dependent, the answer is both. Alliances multiply a country's power because they bring friends, resources, and legitimacy. But they can also limit freedom because every partner has its own interests and expectations. The United States gains global reach through NATO and the EU, but must constantly manage complex relationships. Russia gains solidarity through BRICS and China, but risks becoming economically dependent on its partners. The balance between power and independence is one of the hardest challenges in foreign policy.
Exactly, Adam. The story of global alliances is a story of connection, countries working together to achieve their goals, even when they have different cultures and systems. In today's world, no nation can lead completely alone. The US leads through its wide and deep networks. Russia leads through focused and strategic partnerships. Both strategies show different ways of being powerful. In our next discussion, we'll explore how these alliances influence global conflicts, energy politics, and the competition for influence in different regions. Understanding alliances helps English learners see how power is shared, balanced, and sometimes challenged in our world today.
When we talk about global power today, dear listeners, it is not only about how many tanks or missiles a country has. In the 21st century, real influence comes from ideas, technology, culture, and the ability to connect with people's minds. This is what experts call soft power. It means power through attraction, not through fear. America has mastered this kind of influence over the past decades. From Hollywood movies to popular social media platforms, the U.S. has built a global cultural presence that reaches every corner of the world.
That's a great point, Adam. When people watch American films, listen to American music, or study in American universities, they are not only enjoying entertainment or education, they are also learning about American values, such as freedom, democracy, and opportunity. This kind of influence is very powerful because it shapes how people think about the United States. It builds a positive image of the country. Russia, on the other hand, has a different kind of influence, which is often more political or strategic. But in soft power, the US clearly leads.
Exactly, Julia. If we look at global media, most international news networks, like CNN or Bloomberg, are American. Even the most used social media platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter, were created in the US. These platforms allow America to share its stories, culture, and opinions across the world instantly. They help shape global discussions. Russia has tried to compete through its own media like RT and Sputnik, but their global influence is much smaller and often seen as political rather than cultural.
That's true. And when we talk about technology, we must mention that the world's leading tech companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, are all American. These companies not only create tools we use every day, but also control huge amounts of information and communication channels. This gives the US a massive advantage in shaping the modern world. Russia, while strong in certain areas like cybersecurity and software engineering, does not have global technology brands that reach ordinary consumers in the same way.
You're right, Julia. Another major part of soft power is education. Every year, millions of students from around the world travel to study in the United States. American universities like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are seen as the best in the world. These students often return home with American ideas, skills, and respect for the country's educational system. This creates long-term relationships and influence. Russia also attracts some international students, especially from neighboring countries, but it cannot yet match the US in global educational attraction.
That's an important observation, Adam. We also see soft power in entertainment. Hollywood has built an image of America as a place of dreams and success. People in Asia, Europe, Africa, and Latin America all grow up watching American movies and shows. Even fashion, sports, and fast food carry that image. Think of Nike, Coca-Cola, or McDonald's. These are more than brands. They are symbols of an American lifestyle. Russia's cultural exports, like classical music, ballet, and literature, are highly respected, but they appeal to smaller audiences compared to the global entertainment industry of the US.
Yes, and let's not forget social media influencers and online platforms. American creators have a massive reach worldwide, spreading English, humor, trends, and ideas that influence millions daily. English itself is a key tool of soft power. It's the global language of science, business, and communication. Russia has its own cultural reach through language in certain regions, but globally, English is far more dominant. This makes it easier for America to share its culture and ideas with the world.
That's such an interesting point. When we think about power today, we can't only measure it by military budgets or economic numbers. The power to tell stories, to create technology, and to inspire people's imagination is just as important. America's cultural and digital networks give it influence even in countries where its political power is limited. Russia, however, tends to focus more on hard power, such as military and political moves, rather than building a wide global cultural presence.
Still, Russia understands the value of media and technology. For example, it uses international broadcasting, online campaigns, and cultural programs to promote its perspective. It invests in digital media that reach audiences in Europe, Asia, and Africa. However, these efforts often face trust issues, as many people see Russian media as government-controlled. Meanwhile, American media, despite criticism, are viewed as more open and diverse. This difference affects how both nations are perceived worldwide.
So, if we look at it clearly, the modern world rewards creativity, communication, and collaboration. These are the true currencies of global influence today. A country that can connect people emotionally and intellectually has far greater power than one that rules by fear or force. America has built an empire of ideas through films, education, and innovation, while Russia still relies more on traditional power like energy and military strength. The question for the future is whether Russia can adapt and grow in these softer forms of influence.
That's a question that will shape the next generation, Julia. As technology evolves, soft power will continue to decide which country leads the world. It's not about control, it's about connection. If Russia wants to compete with America as a leading superpower, it must expand its influence beyond politics and defense. It must learn to speak to the world through culture, technology, and inspiration, the real tools of modern power. As we look ahead, dear listeners, the global order is changing more quickly than ever. History shows us that power is never permanent, and today's superpower may face new challengers tomorrow. Russia has rebuilt strength in some areas, but the rise of other nations, especially China, plays a big role in shaping its future. China's rapid economic growth and technological advancement could either help Russia or limit its ability to become the world's leading superpower. Partnerships between Russia and China may give both countries influence, but at the same time, China is far larger in population, economy, and global reach, which could overshadow Russia's ambitions.
That's an important point, Adam. China's rise changes the dynamics of global power. For Russia, this relationship is both an opportunity and a challenge. On one hand, China provides a partner in trade, energy, and political strategy. On the other hand, Russia must ensure it doesn't become dependent or secondary in this partnership. For English learners, the word dependency means relying on someone or something for support. In geopolitics, being dependent can limit a country's freedom to make independent decisions. So, even as Russia strengthens alliances, it must carefully balance its role in a world where China is increasingly dominant.
Meanwhile, the United States continues to maintain global influence through economic strength, military presence, and soft power. American universities, technology, media, and culture reach virtually every country. Even though America faces challenges, including internal political divisions, economic competition from China, and debates about foreign involvement, it still has advantages that Russia cannot easily match. For instance, the US dollar remains the main currency for global trade, giving America a powerful economic tool. American technology and innovation also continue to lead the world, from artificial intelligence to advanced manufacturing.
Another factor to consider is peaceful cooperation and diplomacy. global problems such as climate change, pandemics, and international security cannot be solved by one country alone. Nations need to work together even when they compete. Diplomacy, or the art of negotiating between countries, will be crucial in shaping the future. Russia has opportunities to engage in global diplomacy through organizations like the United Nations, BRICS, and the G20, but it must manage its relationships carefully. Positive engagement could improve its global image, while aggressive actions could increase isolation.
Economics will also play a key role in determining the next world order. Global trade, technology development, and energy markets are more interconnected than ever before. Russia has advantages in natural resources, particularly oil and gas, which are essential for Europe and Asia. However, reliance on commodities alone is risky because prices fluctuate, and new technologies, like renewable energy, may reduce global dependence on fossil fuels. Diversifying the economy, investing in technology, and encouraging education and innovation are vital for Russia to increase its global influence in the long term.
For English learners, the concept of diversification is important here. It means spreading out resources or investments to reduce risk. Economically, a diversified country can adapt more easily to changes in the global market. The United States has a highly diversified economy with strong industries in technology, agriculture, finance, and services. Russia is less diversified, which makes its future influence dependent on successful reforms and careful planning. The ability to innovate, educate new generations, and maintain economic stability will decide how far Russia can compete globally.
In addition, military and technological innovation will shape the next stage of global power. Nations are now investing in cyber capabilities, artificial intelligence, space programs, and advanced weapons. While Russia remains strong militarily, especially with nuclear capabilities, the U.S. continues to lead in technology and global deployment. Countries that can combine military strength with technological advancement and economic stability will have the greatest influence. Russia's challenge is to modernize without overextending its resources, maintaining balance between military power, economic growth, and global partnerships.
Another important factor is soft power. Global influence is not only about money or armies, it's about ideas, culture, and the ability to inspire others. America has decades of soft power through movies, music, education, and language. Russia has cultural influence through literature, arts, and historical achievements, but it has not yet matched the scale of American soft power. Expanding international education programs, cultural exchange, and technological outreach can help Russia project influence more effectively, especially among young people and global audiences.
The global order will also be influenced by unexpected events. Economic crises, conflicts, or major technological breakthroughs can change the balance of power quickly. For Russia, adaptability is essential. Leaders must carefully consider both short-term actions and long-term strategy. Engaging in alliances, building technological strength, and maintaining economic stability are all necessary to increase influence. At the same time, Russia must respect international norms to avoid sanctions or political isolation, which could limit its ability to expand global power.
Finally, cooperation and competition will likely define the future world order. No single country can dominate completely in the modern era. China, the US, Russia, and other major powers will interact in a complex web of collaboration and rivalry. Global problems such as climate change, trade disputes, and security threats require teamwork. Russia's success in the future may depend not only on its military or economy, but also on its ability to work with other nations while maintaining independence and national interests.
So, listeners, when we ask whether Russia can replace America as the world's leading superpower, the answer is not simple. The United States remains strong in economy, technology, and soft power. Russia has recovered in military strength and energy influence, but faces challenges in technology, culture, and global alliances. The rise of China adds complexity. The future world order will be shaped by diplomacy, innovation, economic diversification, and cooperation among nations. In other words, power is multidimensional, and the next decades will be defined by balance, strategy, and adaptability.
Understanding these possibilities helps English learners think critically about global events. Power is not fixed. It changes with leadership, innovation, alliances, and ideas. Russia's future influence depends on careful planning, international cooperation, and modernization. Meanwhile, the United States continues to lead, but history shows us that no global dominance lasts forever. The coming years will reveal whether Russia can expand its influence, whether China reshapes global dynamics, and how diplomacy and cooperation will guide the next world order.
As we reach the final part of today's discussion, dear listeners, it's important to step back and think about the bigger picture. Throughout history, nations have competed for power, influence, and prestige, but the ultimate lessons go beyond politics or economics. Global power teaches us about teamwork, strategy, respect for others, and the importance of innovation. By studying the stories of countries like the United States and Russia, we can learn not only about international relations, but also about human behavior, leadership, and the ways in which cooperation and diplomacy shape the world.
Exactly, Adam. For English learners, there is an additional lesson here. Language and communication are powerful tools. When we read, listen, and discuss global events in English, we improve our vocabulary, comprehension, and critical thinking. Understanding words like diplomacy, innovation, soft power, or alliance helps you not only discuss politics, but also engage with the global community. The ability to express ideas clearly in English opens doors to knowledge, international collaboration, and even career opportunities. Language itself is a form of influence, a personal kind of power.
That's an important point, Julia. Thinking critically about global events is a skill that benefits everyone. For example, when we study the competition between the US and Russia, we can ask questions like, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each country? How do alliances shape power? How does culture influence global perception? These questions teach us to analyze situations logically, consider multiple perspectives, and avoid simple conclusions. Critical thinking is not just for politics. It applies to science, business, education, and daily life.
Yes, and one of the most encouraging lessons is the value of teamwork and cooperation. Even powerful countries cannot solve global problems alone. Climate change, pandemics, international trade, and security require collaboration. By studying global interactions, we can see the importance of listening to others, respecting differences, and working together for shared goals. This is a message that applies to every learner, not just world leaders. In your personal life, working with others, understanding perspectives, and negotiating solutions are key skills that help you succeed.
Innovation is another vital lesson. Nations rise and fall not only because of armies or money, but because of creativity, science, and technological advancement. The U.S. remains strong because it continues to innovate in technology, education, and culture. Russia has strengths in energy and military strategy, but the world is changing rapidly. This teaches us that continuous learning, curiosity, and adapting to new ideas are essential for success. For English learners, this means consistently improving your skills, exploring new vocabulary, and practicing your reading, listening, speaking, and writing every day.
Peace and respect for others are also key takeaways. History shows that conflicts, wars, and competition often come with human costs. Global leadership should combine strength with responsibility. Nations that respect each other's sovereignty, work collaboratively, and promote dialogue create a safer, more stable world. For learners of English, this can translate into understanding cultural differences, communicating respectfully, and appreciating diverse perspectives. Language learning itself is a bridge to better global understanding and mutual respect.
Absolutely, Julia. Another point for English learners is to stay curious about the world. Knowing about international relations, economics, or culture expands your mind and gives context to the words and phrases you learn. For example, when you learn terms like soft power or global alliances, you are not just memorizing vocabulary, you are connecting language with real-world events. This connection helps you remember words better, use them accurately, and discuss complex topics confidently.
We also encourage learners to read, watch, and listen to a variety of English content. Podcasts, news articles, books, and documentaries can improve your vocabulary and comprehension while teaching you about different cultures and perspectives. Engaging with global content allows you to think critically, form opinions, and participate in discussions. Just like nations need diverse strategies to influence the world, learners need diverse methods to improve their English and broaden their understanding of international affairs.
Finally, dear listeners, the story of global power reminds us that strength is not just about domination. It's about knowledge, communication, innovation, and ethical responsibility. As you study countries, leaders, and global events, try to see lessons for your own growth. How can you improve your communication skills? How can you solve problems creatively? How can you collaborate with others and respect their perspectives? These lessons are universal and apply to every aspect of life.
So, to conclude, we hope today's discussion has been educational, inspiring, and motivating. Understanding global power teaches us about leadership, strategy, diplomacy, and cooperation. For English learners, it also provides a chance to practice critical thinking, vocabulary, and comprehension. Keep exploring, keep learning, and continue improving your English every day. By doing so, you are preparing not only to understand the world, but also to participate actively in it, making informed decisions and meaningful contributions.
Thank you, dear listeners, for joining us today on the English Globe. Remember, learning English and understanding global affairs are connected. They both open doors to opportunities and new perspectives. Keep practicing, stay curious, and share your thoughts in the comments about what you've learned today. Where are you listening from, and how do you see the world changing? Your opinions matter, and by reflecting on these topics, you become an informed global citizen.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and that it gave you new insights about global power, alliances, and the future of international relations. Keep building your English skills, stay aware of world events, and always think critically. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to exploring more topics together in future episodes. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep learning.